Well, actually, this is as real as it gets.
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
You're listening to UCW Radio.
In your face.
Give it to me, baby.
All right, welcome to the UCW Radio Show, and this is the show where we bring out some awesome guests. Today's no different, and I'm not even mentioning names. Well, actually, I am. We're bringing on Matthew Jaeger. We're bringing on Carolina Espiro. They're doing some amazing things. Let me bring them on because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Guys, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you guys on. Yeah, this is great stuff. So, let's give a backdrop to the audience because, Matt, you've been on the show a couple times, but that was when we were doing audio. We were doing the radio stuff. Right now we're doing video. We upgraded a little bit, so maybe give them a backdrop of where you're at right now because you've done a lot of things. You've starred in a lot of TV shows. Some of the anything that you said that you were going to be on, I watched, and then Cato, I was what was it? I think you were on George Lopez. Something was going on, and you were on that. See, I remember this stuff.
Yeah, good memory. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I make sure that I support and I watch the things that the good people that I have around me. I support them and watch their projects because you guys have been. I'm talking too much. Let me let you guys talk. Matt, go right ahead.
So you and I met at a knockout dogfighting event. It was a fundraiser to help stop dogfighting in the Southern California area. Right. And we did a couple phone interviews, and I remember put in the headphones, make sure everything's good. Yeah. And obviously, especially with COVID, everything's jumped up now, so we can have these video meetings. Yeah.
Now you have to look pretty. So.
Yeah. Before that, I could just sit in my underwear and
don't pan the camera down. We will stay
we're still sitting in our underwear. It's just we decided to get dressed up on the tap.
We're very news anchor right now.
Yes.
Oh man, too funny.
And since the last time we talked, that was a few years ago. I mean, we got married, and then
I can't believe that was before we got married.
I know. Yeah, we got married.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Coming up on
6 years in April. 6 years in April.
Oh wow. Well, we've known each other. We've known each other a long time, Matt. Oof.
Yeah, we've known each other probably about 10, 11 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Wow. Ooh, we're not getting old. Stop it.
Just keep on over that.
We were both in our 20s when we met. So.
Yes. Sure. Yeah, exactly.
I think we all graduated high school at that point.
I think so. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not going to argue.
But yeah, man, since then we've done television work, commercial work. We ended up moving to New York for a year. I booked something. I was understudying a Broadway show. We went out there for a year, and she got a recurring role on FBI for a while we were out there. And I did a thing for Blacklist, and we did a couple other little projects out there. And then we came back to LA, and then we were bouncing back actually between the two. We'd go back to New York every spring or fall just to audition around, and she actually booked an indie film that's out right now.
Yeah, Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always is like it's so funny when you book these small indie films. You have no idea. It could come out horribly. You could never air. But this one, well, we knew it was going to probably be something. It was directed by Eliza Hittman, and she was involved with the people who did, Moonlight. Is it Moonlight or Moonlight, and If Beale Street Could Talk. So I had a feeling that this would probably go somewhere, but yeah, it's been just rocking out the festivals and sadly, luckily we were able to see it on the big screen the day, the day the theaters closed. They were going to have their grand opening, their grand premiere the next day. We saw it the day before, and on that evening they closed the theater, so they never had
that was
a
when
premiere.
everything went to lockdown.
Oh, wow.
They didn't even put the posters up yet You know, and they were getting there. You could see them with the posters rolled up. They were getting ready to put up the posters for the next day at AMC, and then they shut down the theaters.
Yeah.
So we were able to see the big screen. So that was cool. But it broke my heart that they didn't get that release that they deserved. But still, it's it's going crazy over the internet.
Yeah, it's won a bunch of awards.
Yeah, it's about it's just about these these two young women who one of them got pregnant. She's like a teenager, young teenager, and she has to cross to New York to get the care that she needs to. She decides to have an abortion, and it talks about kind of just what they have to go through. They have no money. I mean, it's just an incredible, just so well directed, so well acted. Just it's so simple in the way that they portray the story. And I play a woman who helps them with their, on how she can financially pay for the procedure through Planned Parenthood and all of that. And, the options that they have out there that don't normally have in a lot of states. So it's just so well done. And it just kind of a slice out of life. It doesn't really resolve anything. It just says, look, this is what happens.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's
you
almost
decide,
life. Yeah, but it's like real life things that things happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you have to go through it. But look, with indie films, it's a hit or miss. It all depends on who is directing this film. One indie film that I know of that did quite well, and no one really, people wrote it off for a couple of years before it was done, is The Wrestler. Okay, and look at him now. Look at Aaron Oakley now. He was doing that, filming that inside of his van. Nobody knew that. But look at him now. It's just a matter of the talent that's on top and how everyone just comes together. So I'm happy that was successful, and you guys are getting awards, and they're going to put your centerfold in a magazine and all that stuff. in Indie Daily, boom, right there.
Well, they've already done all of this wonderful things. I just play like a small supporting role. So, obviously all of the attention and accolades are going to the main cast and the directors, but I'm just, it's one of those stories.
But she's excellent.
I'm just happy to be involved.
She's excellent in it.
No, I'm just
saw
saying,
her in it. She's beautiful.
Anyways, I'm just giving the attention.
But you see how you downplay, you supporting role, lead role. The lead role is only as good as your supporting cast. So if your supporting cast is on point, everything is better because they're supporting and they're helping.
Absolutely. But either which way, it was just I was just so grateful to be a part of that story because I thought it was so important to be told. And these girls, it was, I believe, their first time acting, and so it was just. It was just one of those things where when an actor first starts, you either have all of these walls or you're completely raw and completely natural, and that's who they were. And you got to see that realness, and it was just such great work from them. And I was just really happy to be a part of it. So that happened well. A lot of great things happened in New York. As he said, I got to be recur on FBI. There was another film I was a part of, Mosquito State, which is making their festival run but not released, so I still haven't seen it. So we'll see about that. But and mainly for me, it's just I'm shifting back into directing, but this time instead of web series, I wrote a short story that's going to star my parents.
I wanted to bring up your parents. You just blew me up. Your parents. They've never acted before, but you made them do something, or maybe your mother wanted to do it herself. I don't know.
Well, it happened because my mother. First of all, both of my parents had full-fledged careers when they were younger. I'm talking about my dad was like a regional director. Engineering for this huge corporation, and my mom was the CFO of this huge corporation. But as they left their jobs to start like a business on their own, and that business wasn't able to survive. And so they decided instead of going back into corporate world, they were going to do like a part-time job just to have something to do. My mom was working at Macy's and she was working with clothing, and her arthritis started to really bother her. And I'm like, Mom, I don't feel comfortable with you. I know you want to work, but it's gonna exacerbate your condition.
Sure.
My parents have always been super charming. My mother has a wonderful smile. She just is so, and I'm like, Mom, have you ever thought about maybe trying commercials, because you just kind of just need to be able to be authentically yourself with commercials. It's a very different kind of market than theatrical film.
And I'm sure she gave you a special face that only you can recreate.
Oh yeah, she was like, oh. She just kind of lit up. And I mean, I did have them in a little short film when I was, I don't know, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. I just put them in for fun. And surprisingly, my mom was just able to take direction so well that I was like, I think she could do this. So I basically put her through like a week smash course. I went through all of the basics, mainly just trying to keep tapping into that just natural, raw, untainted,
She
way
really
about
did.
her.
She, like, every step of the way, she was kind of holding their hands and helping them out.
Yeah, and then I, took headshots for her, introduced her to my commercial agent. They loved her, and then they started going auditions, and especially during now, because it's all self-tape, they wanted real couples who lived together, quarantined together, and especially in the age group that they were in. So my dad started to be brought in, and they started getting callbacks and avails, and that's when I was like, all right, coast to coast, you want to take on my dad too? And so he took his headshots, and literally within 3 months of them going on like consistent auditions, they booked a campaign with Kay's Jewelers. They booked a union.
Of course they did. Of course they did. Meanwhile, you have guys that are out there 10 years and they don't book anything.
I know. That's what we told them.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the conversation we had?
Yeah, sure. So there was, we were congratulating them and everything, because really they were already, eligible to join the union within 3 months of starting.
No way.
We told them each how it took us like several years of trying. It took me 10 years before I even booked my first national. And so we were like, we're so happy for you guys. We're so proud of you. I mean, and we said the word, but F you just a little bit. And her mom was like, F us!
Oh, man.
I did those words to my parents before at that point, but and then they use it all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Every time they book, they're like, yeah, F us!
Oh my God, that's funny. That's funny. I saw the picture of your mom when she had booked the thing, and I said, you know what? I can just see how that conversation went. I can just see it. That's great.
Actually, how we found out that they booked is that they have their cottage in over here. We built them basically like an ADU unit, and so we have the main house and they live in that cottage.
Right.
So we've been working on trying to communicate on yes, we are all family living on one property, but you also remember this is our home, and so please try
sort
to
of a dirty dancing. This is your dance space. This is our dance space.
Yeah, you got to lay that groundwork down.
We were in bed, right? We were in bed, and my parents come rushing in. We booked it, like literally.
Oh my God.
Matt is struggling to put on clothes, and I'm like, stop! Stop! And my mom's like, runs out.
That's hilarious. That's
So
hilarious.
Yeah.
Put on our clothes.
That right there is something you have to write into a movie, because really, that's funny. That is funny.
We're like, congratulations.
But he has never entered our home again without texting us saying, hey, we just wanted to come in. Can we borrow?
Yeah. She doesn't want to go through that again. That's for sure.
No. Oh my gosh.
Hey, Matt, I want to ask you something, because you've been in plays and everything. What's your take on what's going on Broadway and beyond that with the theaters and the how they're shut down and the workers can't work? What's your take on everything?
I mean, of course, it's heartbreaking to see it down. I mean, especially because we got to know a fair number of people who they make their living on Broadway, and seeing that they're just not able to do it. I have a good friend I went to college with. He and his wife both work on the production side. The downside, of course, is that with theater, you are required to sit in very close contact with other people for hours at a time, which in an era in the middle of a pandemic, you just can't do. One of the workarounds that I've enjoyed that I've liked seeing are these sort of virtual people either doing readings or performances. I was part of a reading over the summer, but I think it's by no means a replacement for Broadway, and you can't replace Broadway. Broadway is Broadway, but I think it's a way for people to still experience that, to have the live performance feeling. Also for the performers and the people involved on the technical side to make some money. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as my take on it, it's a heartbreaking necessity.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you think about a Broadway house, they average about 800 to 1,000 people. All you need is one person who's sick, and you just created a super spreader event, and you just can't. But I remember actually the day that Broadway closed down, she kept asking me, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? It was the first time that I realized how serious COVID-19 was. We hear about things like SARS and MERS, and it's always over there, somebody else's problem.
Right.
And then Broadway was like, we're shutting down. And I mean, we were in New York when there was a snowstorm and Broadway stayed open.
Yeah.
Right.
I think they closed one night because all the subways had to shut down.
Yeah.
That was it. And so when they were like, we're closing for the foreseeable future, I'm actually getting chills as I'm talking about it. Like, I was like, wow, okay, so we need to get ready that this is going to be a thing. And so, so we went out and we got some food and we kind of prepared for what might be a long haul.
Well, you're a nature man, you know all about it. Right?
We did, and we've got our stuff if we need it, But we prepared to, like I said, we prepared for the long haul.
Yeah,
and now starting to do things to still continue performances.
Yeah,
they're working with SAG-AFTRA to work out a deal where they can.
SAG-AFTRA and Equity had a huge negotiation, and there was some rocky moments to be sure, but they worked it out so that what would be, if it was live, it would be an Equity contract, but because they want to air it, it should be a SAG-AFTRA contract. There's now a waiver where it can still be an Equity contract, so that you can get people who normally work in Equity and rely on those health credits and rely on that income for their pension, all of that. They can do
basically
that.
Making these performances available streaming, as opposed to, obviously they can't make it live, but to make it available streaming, and yes, that crosses over into TV, film, theater, and that kind of thing.
I think that's one of the nice things. I mean, obviously this has not been, everybody likes to say 2020 was a really hard year, and it was, but watching how people have come together and worked together to find these kinds of answers.
Right.
Two unions who, started out a little like, no, we want this, who were able to then find an answer and find a solution. And just seeing, almost anywhere you look, there's a lot of fear. And I think we hear a lot on the news about the divisiveness that's been going on, and that's definitely there. But on the other side, there are those people in those times when you get to see people coming together to help each other out. And that to me has been, I guess, the silver lining to what otherwise has been a difficult situation.
Yeah, I think people need to come together to help each other, because, I mean, in Hollywood and Broadway, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's not just about the gig. It's everything that's associated with it, because you're talking about insurance. It's like you're working in a company. You have insurance, you have this, you have that. And when you don't have that, it impacts your lives. It impacts your family and everything else. And then you have the trickle-down effect. So I don't think a lot of people understand that.
There are a lot of ripples that go out.
Look, I understand how the unions are, but you know what? In a crisis, you got to put down your ego and just make it work so people can get to work as they can, if they can.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so grateful they were able to come together and do that. And in a weird way, I feel like there's been a new push to unionize, because of course you also have people in situations like this who are trying to sort of take advantage of things because people are desperate. And so you need groups like unions who are able to say, no. I know that right now this person's desperate, so they're willing to work for a bag of peanuts, but you actually need to give them a livable wage, and you need to make sure that they're not just working themselves into poverty.
Well, that's what was happening, I believe, with Tenet, right? That was a big thing with that movie, that they were trying to prevent it from being aired or going into theaters or something. There was something with that had to do with the union.
Oh, I honestly don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
You know who's in it?
I don't know. It was that big movie
Okay.
that came out, big movie. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but I know that during that time, they said if you are in this movie with this guy that you can get banned by the union or something, And I thought it was kind of extreme, you know.
The only thing I could think is if they shot it under a non-union contract.
Yeah, if they probably, I mean, usually something like that would happen if they like broke the contract, and and it's not like, if anybody works on it, they're banned. It's union actors are not allowed to work on it because they have broke their contract with SAG-AFTRA. This project is no longer union until they re-sign or they basically, behave in a good faith manner. So that kind of stuff doesn't get extreme until they are pushed to be that extreme. Because again, it's the only way to make sure that these people are following the rules and making sure that they're protecting their employees and in health, in safety as well, financially. So if they are doing things to break those rules and endangering their actors, well, in this particular case, specifically actors, that it's the only way to make sure that doesn't keep happening. Because if they don't put those extreme measures, then another film and another film and another will continue to do that.
I do know there were a couple, and I'm trying to remember which ones. One of them I think was a Michael Bay film that was starting out, and they released what were called do not work notices, which was letting all members know that right now this film, and what it was early on in the pandemic. There were certain productions who decided, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and do it anyway. And the unions were like, no, you can't do that unless you have certain. And then that was what led to, or part of that is what led to the AMPTP and both the directors, producers, and technical and actors guilds coming together and releasing those guidelines for everybody to be like, hey, here's how we're going to do it safely. Everyone acknowledges there's no way to be 100% safe, but at least have some things in place. And we've both worked during this time, and I can tell you that having those protections in place have been a huge relief because you're going,
because you're not putting yourself at risk,
You're not putting yourself at risk, and you're also not bringing, because we're both guest actors, so we come in that way. For me, I'm not sure if it'd be worse to catch it from them or to know that I was the one who brought it in and got other people sick, especially if somebody ends up either getting really sick or even dying from it.
Right.
So even that, the risk in a lower scale, the risk is shutting down the production because you've exposed everyone, and so everyone's lost their job, down to the grip and the PAs. They all have to be let go because one person decided to not, take the test or whatever. And so, to this day, there are still, I know, many union actresses who refuse to go on auditions because they still don't feel like it's safe enough. So there's still so many actors that are not working, waiting for either to get, their vaccines or just until they can feel more comfortable that things are really safe.
Especially if they're older. Especially if they're in that high risk group.
And for a fact, I really, really believe this, that if the union did not come in, strictly and saying, follow these CDC guidelines, or we will not, we cannot give you our actors. If that didn't happen, I know when my parents first did their first commercial, it was not union, and so they never tested for COVID. They were going to have, an entire their set not tested, and we had to fight with our agents and say, absolutely not. You have to at least have anybody that is within 6 feet of my parents. They have to be tested. Background, if you're going to have them without, because they can't shoot without a mask, if you're going to have them within 6 feet, then they have to be tested. If not, you need to push them out, and they have to be background.
They're both on the high risk.
Right, and my dad's diabetic, and so if we did not push for that, they would have had this set, with background and everybody without masks, just doing their thing, on a union set. That would never have been allowed. Now it's different. I think they're getting a little more strict, but it's still a little.
They want to stop the spread. That's why Tom Cruise was yelling on set, and but then people said he he exaggerated. He went over the top. But the thing is, not really, because again, you impact people's lives. If let's say you go on set, you're sick, and you don't know, you're not tested, and you get 3 other people sick. Now those 3 other people get 10 other people sick. They don't know, and all of a sudden, by the end of the day, everyone's sick, and you shut down production, and that's tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that is just frozen.
It's a lot of money lost from
a lot of money.
Impossible people's health. So.
Yeah. So that's I think that hopefully at some point this year things open up a little bit so people can get back to work, especially on Broadway. Movies and TV, you can work around it, commercials.
We have residuals, we have passive income, whenever they show a TV show or film, they make money on our image and we get a little tiny piece of that. And so
royalties don't hurt, let me tell you.
I mean, I love the residual fairy. Every time she comes, we're happy.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit of passive income that as a on-screen performer you have, whether you do commercials, TV, film, whatever. But for Broadway, you only get paid if you're performing. And so I know people on Broadway there are some people on Broadway who are really hurting right now.
Yeah, hopefully things loosen up a little bit and they come up with alternatives where these people can get to work and safely, which is important. Now, shifting from the COVID and the Broadway, I'm going to the screenwriter, script writer. One of you two are writing. I wonder who that is.
And it's funny because I swore I would never do it. Because I had always, wanted to just, if not completely shift over to directing, but shift more over there. And I've had, some wonderful friends who are independent female directors. And I had one person say, she's like, because I was just like, I just don't want to produce. I want to direct. And she's like, honey, if you want to direct, you're going to have to produce. And if you're going to produce, you're going to have to write. You're going to have to do it all yourself. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so I started to write, a little bit about what I know. Because, I don't know if you know this, but I am a hula dancer. I dance.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all.
So I've been doing that for 6 years, which is a completely immersive. I mean, you have to learn about the culture and the language and everything. And so I started to write about that. But then, Corona hit, and there's just no way I'm going to be able to shoot big shows, big performances, crowds, nothing like that. So, Matt and I were like, okay, well, what do I do? He's like, babe, I think you're just going to have to start over. I was like, I have to write another. And I just kind of looked out the window. I'm like, what can I do? What can I shoot now? What can I shoot now right away in this situation that we're in? And I was like, okay. And I looked around my neighborhood. I'm like, all right, I'm going to write a story about an Avon lady. And then my thought automatically went to my mother.
Oh, I was going to say, just right on the mom. I'm sure you have a million more stories to come out.
And so I was like, this Avon lady is going to be a woman who is an immigrant, who became an Avon lady to practice her English, but is just not very good at it. She can, she only knows what's on her card, her pitch. And she just gets, turned away, just left and right, boom, boom, boom. And like literally chased down the street by a dog. I mean, there's just all these little, just fun little parts. And then till she meets an eccentric neighbor who decides to just kind of bring her in and teach her that, that you don't need to know the perfect words or the language to sell something. You have to believe in the product. And so for example, he kind of is like, okay, pull out like a couple of perfumes that you have for sale. And some of them, the names are like, salacious sugar and like titillating
that wasn't too uncomfortable, right, Matt?
Oh my gosh, it was great. And so he shows us like, okay, now listen, smell it, listen to the words. What does it evoke in you, And then he starts playing Marvin Gaye, and she's like, she doesn't know what the words mean. She doesn't know what the words are saying in the music, but she can feel the sensuality. And so she's like, okay, tell me again. What are you holding? She's like, salacious sugar.
Oh my God.
And so she uses that.
Nice.
And so there's a lot of fun scenes of her kind of getting into this mood and him just loving it and saying, okay, go sell it. And of course, she goes back to the same houses. And because she's just really believes in it and sells it in a way that expresses, what each smell invokes in her, she's able to sell these products. And then in the end, of course, she's enjoying all of her purchase order forms and her success, and she sees a man trying to sell his services as a roto-rooter, and he doesn't know any English. Come, my dad.
Of course.
And, except because he also knows Portuguese, we're going to sell him as someone who's from Portugal, Portuguese immigrant. And so, and she just kind of looks at him and smiles, and then cut to back into the neighbor's apartment. And
he brings him.
Trying to get him to sell, his snake, his.
Oh my God, that's funny. You became the Jordan Belfort of comedy.
Yeah, so I wanted something small. So, and the funny thing is, what was insane is my mom was like, that I used to be an Avon lady, but it wasn't Avon, it was Mary Kay. Right. She's like, that was my first job coming to this country, and I did it to learn English. And I'm like, what? And she's
That's
like,
funny.
yes. And so I'm like, I'm thinking that maybe I must have heard the story when I was a kid, and it just kind of buried in the recess. Yeah. But just to find out that was a true thing for her, just kind of added layers to the story more than anything. And so, but yeah, I'm excited. I've finished it. I've gotten it down to 14.
Oh, now who do we have here? Who do we have?
He will also be in the short.
Yeah,
this is Papi.
This is Papi.
Hey, Papi, how you doing?
He's also been in several commercial auditions.
Really?
Oh yeah, as has Honeybee, who's a little too big to pick up. She's a German Shepherd.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little bit too big. I don't think she'll fit in this shot. I don't.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of her entrance into directing because
I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome that you're able to pivot and you're not afraid of it. And you're coming up with ideas, because that, to me, even with your mother coming in when you guys were in bed, that's hilarious. Write that into the script. Write it in. But what is this going to be, a show, or is it going to be a film series? What is it going to be?
Right now, it's just a short film, mainly because anything bigger, it's going to delay me actually getting to set and doing it. So I wanted something short, something that I can, show others and say, okay, when I say that I'm a director, here's my proof. This is what I've done. This is my style. And maybe put it to festivals to be able to get it to, mainly I want to connect with other people so I can start doing more, and just, start that resume. And it's becoming easier and easier to do this pivot, mainly because of, my dad was the first person who said, I really love your work as an actor, but I really think you belong in the director's chair. And then I was like, okay. My mom would say the same thing.
She has the soul of a director.
And then he would say the same thing. And I was like, well, the people who know me the best see this in me. And so, and I also have this, when I am on set as an actor, I tend to be like, that's not going to work with the shot we did before. But, so I just tend to kind of like think
when you're on set as an actor, and if you know the different components from the lighting to everything else, it hits you. And when you get from going in front of the camera to going behind the camera, all of a sudden, someone may be green at something, but hey, you need to be here for this shot to be a certain way and for everything to hit a certain way, the light to hit you a certain way, because you've been there. And I think having that experience helps.
Yeah, and I think especially because as an actor, you work with two different kinds of directors. There's the directors who are very technically minded. Either they went to film school and they went in through a more technical way, or they started out as like a DP or something like that. And they can set up the perfect lighting, they can set up everything, but they have to learn the skill of communicating with the performer.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you have the other kind who've come at it from a more performer perspective, and they're very good. They can tell you exactly what they need. And there's sort of as a performer, it's nice to have that because you have this sort of dialogue and this language that you can use, and then you see them, and obviously then the skill they had to learn was the more technical side.
Right.
As a performer, I'm highly biased. I like to work with a person who has that performing background.
Yeah. And as an actor, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like
it makes it easier for you though, because you can actually enjoy what you're doing, and you're not teaching the director where you should stand and how the lighting's going to be, because I guarantee you, especially Kato, like I bet you're there, you're like, wait a second, if I was 2 feet this way, it'd be better, and you need to let them know. Yeah.
It's hard not to let them know. It's hard to be like, okay, they know what they're doing, and then you have to, and Matt does this too, you have to find in your own way to kind of help, you know that the camera at the corner of your eye is here, and it's getting dangerously close to blocking the other person, so you just kind of counter to help, that kind of thing. And that is something that is good knowing, going into that. But more than anything, it's just, the struggle I feel with directors is that they have an image, they have a vision, and they have to somehow communicate it to their crew, but also communicate what they're trying to say or trying to envision to their actors. And then another aspect to it is you have to kind of let go a little bit of your vision, because you have to let the actor create as well. And that letting go is what I find a lot of directors, writers, any creative aspect is very difficult, because you're married, especially as a writer, you're married to what you're to the characters you created, and every step of the way, the director, the producer, any kind of creative person that comes in will alter that a little bit, but hopefully for the better. And that synergy that comes, that true art that cinema has, because there's so many components, so many people that affect the finished product, which is why I believe it's so different than any other art form, in that I can't imagine any other art form requires so many people, so many just influences to create this finished product, that remove any one of them and it would have changed.
It has to be a very collaborative,
and true magic can come out.
But when you have that magic, you have those people that are all in tune. It's like a symphony, because everything's working nicely like a machine. You just need one person out of whack, and then all of a sudden, and I've seen it. I was watching a movie with Bruce Willis, and he just did it recently, and it just came out. I was watching it, I'm looking at it, and the other actors are like, there was some guy from One Tree Hill, and he's there. And I said, the actors are, and then the one that played his wife, she was definitely not an actress, and it was like just very bad, and it made me want to shut the movie off, and it's like, but I said, it's Bruce Willis, it's gotta get better, right? It's got, I mean, I guess I'm going to be in Die Hard mode until we get to it. So, a knife came out and everything, so it got better. But, because they killed her. They knocked her. But the bottom line is that when you have one actress or actor in a film that can knock everything out of sync. And it doesn't matter, you can try to cover as much as possible, but if they're out of sync, it just knocks the flow, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think the best kind of director, using the symphony you're talking about, is like an orchestral conductor. They're able to keep everybody going towards the same goal, but then allow them to have their own freedom. There's in September, I had one of the best experiences I've ever had on a TV show. I shot a couple episodes of a show that I can't, they've asked us not to say which show it is yet, but it'll be coming out in the late spring, early summertime. Okay. But there was a scene where we're in the hospital, and I'm playing a doctor, and this person has come out of their bed before they're really ready to. And what was written was the dialogue between this character and these two characters who were regulars on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just weird because in the midst of all this stuff running around, so I started ad-libbing just a couple things that were loud enough for my mic to hear, but wouldn't be picked up by the other mics if they didn't want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was something that wasn't quite working, and we'd done a couple takes, and it wasn't really we'd done a couple rehearsals, and it wasn't really working. So I tried just adding a couple things in there. And the director came up and was like, yeah, keep doing that. Feel free to just go nuts, ad-lib. And so I ended up ad-libbing this whole scene happening underneath their conversation. And the director and I started working together. We tightened up what the lines were. And as a guest actor, you're not often given the freedom to just do that. So being able to do that, but then having a director who recognized oh, that's why it wasn't working.
But that's a good director because the ego is not there. It's about the end result.
Yeah, he's just okay, oh, that's why it wasn't working, because they're in the middle of this massive emergency situation and none of the emergency people are talking to each other. So as that happened, and then some of the other actors started throwing in a couple things, and so we were eventually able to create this whole scene that was the backdrop for the main scene that was happening. And, not only did we all get a little more screen voice time, which is always nice, but it really fleshed out what was happening between the two characters and gave it sort of put a little more meat on the bones of the scene.
It's going to draw the audience in closer because there's something going on. They're like, wow, something's happening. As opposed to focusing on these two guys. They're focusing on the scene itself.
Yeah, and I went in to do some looping, and I got to see the scene, and it came out really nicely. I'm excited to see how when it airs.
See, but if you weren't experienced like you are, you would have been afraid to do that, like most people would be.
Right, and that's where it's nice when the experience comes in, and I couldn't even tell you how many jobs we've done at this point, but you got to learn. That's the hardest part, I think, as a performer, especially when you're a guest, when you're supporting or you're a guest star, is finding that line of I'm offering something, but I'm not getting in the way.
Right.
There's a difference between I'm offering something to help this goal that we're all heading towards.
So being pushy.
And I'm being pushy, or I'm trying to make it all about me when it's not about me. It's about whatever
it's all in a presentation and how you bring it to the table. If you throw a turkey, you slam it on the table, the people aren't going to really adhere to it. But if you're nice, hey, if you want a slice, we can do this, then people will come to it. Yeah. And
you have to know what it's that it's not about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about you. And I have to say, even watching, I got to work with this last project, there were a couple really big names that I got to work with, which was exciting. And even watching them, everyone else is treating it like it's about them, and they're not treating it like it's about them. They're treating it like this is the story, this is where we're going to, this is what we're doing. And I think that's the mark. That's something that I always look up to in another professional when I'm working with them, when it's they don't make it about them, even if they're insanely famous, even if they're whatever. It's oh no, we're all working together to make this happen.
But key word, professional. If you're a professional, you know how the machine works and what you need to do. If it's about you and your ego is there, you know what? People don't like working with people like that. And with the shakeup in Hollywood, with this Weinstein and all this other nonsense, hopefully all that crap is gone and people can actually go and act and really create some great projects without the nonsense.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, with all of that,
it hurt me to say that name. Let me tell you,
the toxicity that came out. I think I have a feeling we're going to be dealing with that fallout for a little while, because there's always people who want to do it. But I think what people don't realize is the great product that came out, like a lot of the great stuff that came out that Weinstein produced, came out despite him doing that, not because of him doing that.
Right.
And when you're able to not be that influence in the product, I think it's a lot easier to get a good product.
Yeah.
Personally, in my experience.
Well, you look, I mean, this, not to harp on him, but his company, they produce some great movies, but the individual, well, anyway, he's going to be looking at four walls for some time. So that's his issue.
Yeah.
So now let's get back. You're doing some audiobooks.
Oh, yeah. So one of the other things
I remembered, see?
Yeah. One of the things that when we did New York, when we were in New York, after the Broadway show, it closed earlier than we expected, so I had a little downtime. and I started looking for something to do, and I don't remember how it popped up. We started like.
Oh, it's because
You took a voiceover class.
Yeah, in New York, the union offers like free workshops, free classes.
The SAG After Foundation, they offer free classes to members.
Mhm.
And then,
you mind if I take it?
No, go ahead.
SAG After Foundation, they offer free classes to members, including casting workshops and ways for working professionals to keep honing their craft and explore new things. And Carolina took a class which was an intro to voiceover, and just different ways you can do, whether it be looping, whether it be commercial voiceover and all of that. And because she's bilingual, she had already been doing some work in the voiceover, especially in the Spanish language realm. So she wanted to kind of find out more about that. And she mentioned there was a really good class and I should check it out. And I was like, oh, okay. And I went and I looked at it. And for whatever reason, man, they mentioned audiobook narration. And I already had enjoyed listening to audiobooks. I'm kind of a bookworm. I'm always reading or listening to something. And you can see her nodding in the background. She's like, yeah, it's true.
That's
I love
good. I mean, you get lost. You get lost in books.
Yeah,
I love reading.
I love that stuff.
You learn, you get lost, and
yeah,
and then you're like, yes, dear, while you're reading the book. I know how it works.
Yeah, I think sometimes she's like, I think I'm jealous of your audiobook right now because I was listening to a particularly good one. But anyway, I was so I started doing it. And I started auditioning. And I booked a couple, just, like lower level kind of books, and I read a few of those. And then we came back to LA, and I plunked down some money, and I actually bought a voiceover booth. And I was auditioning for books, and I booked this. It was the first of what's planned out to be 5, and now I've done the first 2 of the Thomas Wildest series. And it's about this young man who discovers that he has, magical powers, like so many. But the thing that I like about it, because I'm kind of a nerd, is the magic is all based in physics and quantum physics. So when he's learning a new skill, it's based on, there's one part where he's learning translocation. And they're using the principle of quantum physics that subatomic particles can be in multiple places at the same time. And they extrapolate that into using that for this. And I mean, I may be biased because I'm the narrator. I think it's incredibly well written. It's Thomas Wildest and the Book of Sorrows is the first one. The second one is Thomas Wildest and the Wizard of Sumeria. And it's been a real joy to work with the author. And we actually, when lockdown first happened, I had this idea. I said, hey, would you let me do a live reading, a chapter a day of your book? Because I had a lot of friends who have kids who they're like, I don't know what to do with my kids. They can't go play with their friends. They can't go to school. They're going crazy. So we did something called story time for a couple months, and I just read a chapter a day. And so we started out with Thomas Wildest and the Book of Sorrows, and I was finishing up Wizard of Sumeria. And then I did a couple other authors who let me read their books, and I would always give the author a plug as a thank you, but they didn't ask for any rights or anything. We just did it via Facebook Live. And so right now you can listen to my dulcet tones on Thomas Wildest and the Book of Sorrows and Thomas Wildest and the Wizard of Sumeria by J.M. Bergen. And I'm guessing we should be scheduled around May or June to start on the 3rd one. I haven't read it yet, but I have to say, I really like J.M.'s writing. He started it as a story that he would tell his kids when they were going to bed. And he does, I believe it's technical writing. And so he started kind of writing it as a challenge and a project. And then he's just been exploring it, expanding it. And I have to say, it's a lot of fun. We listened to one of them on a road trip we took with her parents. And we got back and we hadn't finished the book. And her mother reached out and was like, could we finish the book? She's like, I want to know what happens. I want to know how it ends. And
I think that's great because you're doing different things outside of just acting, which makes you more versatile. I've seen both of you in action. And when you're acting, it's just interesting because you are so natural at it. When you're in your scene, you're a part of it. You know what I mean? You're a part of it. It doesn't look like you're out of whack, and well, some actors are like that. It's like they don't belong in that scene, but you're there. It's like you belong there. You know, there was I think I don't know what show it was. I don't know if it was CSI or something or Criminal Minds, and you were there. You were in a grocery store or something, and you're walking by, did something.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah. The Criminal Minds. It was at the farmers market.
Oh,
When I was,
yeah.
I remember all this stuff, and I don't know why, you know. But anyway, but you did it. It was like so natural, and the way they kept zoning in on you and what you were doing, it was just pretty cool.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a really fun project to work on.
Yeah.
They were a fun crew. Yeah, I think as an actor, it comes to that. You know, you try to train and you get all the skills you need. And I think the secret and the heart that I know I struggled with is then you just throw it all away and you may go in and do something totally different from anything you've practiced. And you have to be okay with that. And it's weirdly, I don't know if I didn't tell you this. So totally unrelated to anything. I help run the business for a Kung Fu studio that a buddy of mine and I run.
Now, look at that.
Yeah, we've now moved virtual via Zoom. It's called Five Families Kung Fu Sun Tzu. I did martial arts as a kid, and then I got involved in a guy who I had to stop. Some things happened, and I got connected with this buddy of mine who does Kung Fu, and we opened it up. But it's weird that, like, people don't think, like, oh, acting and self-defense and fighting go together. And they do in the way of you train. And then when that happens, you throw all that stuff out the window, and you have to just be in the moment. Mm-hmm. Whether it be acting or whether it be in a stressful situation where you have to do something like that, if you're caught up in things that you've decided ahead of time, and I'm saying this because I know you're into MMA and you're into boxing and you're in that way, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
If you're caught up in what you plan to do ahead of time, you're never going to be successful. Or if you are successful, it'll be despite the mistakes you're making. Nope. You have to throw it all out the window and then just be there in the moment and react however you need to react.
And that's life. You know, there's no plan. You know, I mean, you think you have to, like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get knocked out, right? I'm not, but that's the reality, because you think you have a plan until something shifts. If you're not nimble enough, you know, you can't pivot here. Look at what you guys are doing now. Audio books, writing, directing. This is the stuff you're doing, but you're seeing that, hey, your skill set is rising. Okay. Yeah. And that's an awesome thing. And, you know, and before we, you know, because we're coming to the top of the hour, there are two things that we're going to touch on here.
Okay.
First, okay. And I always do this when couples are on, couples in Hollywood, you know, how do you guys deal with it? That's a big question. It's not easy, I'm sure. Maybe for you guys, but
you want to start off? You start, and then I'll just stay within those parameters.
Yeah,
and that's how we survive.
And that's how we survive.
That's it.
Actually, I can't imagine doing this if he wasn't in the industry. I have like right now, I have several friends who are actresses, and they are single, and they are trying to date. And I just remember this one story of this one woman who, you know, she had a date and she had to cancel because she had this audition. And he's like, "This is the third time you canceled. This is I said, this is a nice restaurant. I said it why can't you just cancel your audition?" And she's like, "No, that is not how this works. It's like a job interview. I do not cancel auditions for anybody or for anything." And for what we call a civilian, which is someone not in the entertainment industry, they don't understand that kind of concept. Like if Valentine's Day is coming up, an anniversary is coming up, how could you?
Our first anniversary.
Our 1 year wedding anniversary. I had to drive up to, what's this place called?
Trona
for a Toyota commercial. I couldn't even be with him and somebody who's not in the industry would not understand why that would be more important. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way we survived. So
our first two anniversaries we were separate.
Yeah, the second year I was doing something. Yeah, I think you were doing Dodge. I
was doing something, but yeah. So our first two anniversaries, one of us was out of town shooting something.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until we were both out of town in New York for that job that we were able to celebrate our anniversary together. And even then, I think I had rehearsal till late, so we had to kind of
point being
figure
is
it
that
out. Yeah.
being in the same industry, we can understand that. Like we wouldn't doubt for a second that we wouldn't for a second think about, oh, I wish you would give this up so we could. I mean, it would even cross our minds. We wouldn't never expect that from each other because we're in the same industry. The downside, obviously, is that both of us, our income is always in flux.
Right.
So we have to come up with ways to, once we have our income, to stretch it out as long as possible. Hopefully until the next person books the next thing. And like when we were first starting out and we're still struggling, we kind of make a deal where whoever books a commercial, that person would pay rent for that month.
Yeah.
To give the other person
check in.
Yeah.
So that the other person was struggling.
And that's kind of how we went through that beginning phase.
Right.
But right now, I mean, the farther we're getting on our career, the better it's getting. Like especially now, if I'm switching over to directing and all of that, I already have my actor right here. Or if I need, and since he also has experience behind the camera, I think what really works out also, I can't just say that any two married actors and it would be great.
No, jealousy can be an issue sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. If one person keeps booking and the other one doesn't, that's got to be really hard.
I think you have to, because I'll say right off the bat, she books more than I do. Period. She just does.
Because I'm female, Hispanic. And
she's bilingual. I mean, she's much more marketable than I am right now.
Yeah.
And especially as a man who grew up a certain way in the Midwest, there was a certain amount of ego and pride swallowing that had to happen and continually has to happen to be like, that's the reality. And so in those times, having to remind myself that, no, now's the time to be her cheerleader. Now's the time to be her supporter. And even if I go for a year without booking, my job is to support her and then find a way that I bring in income, however it may be. And, maybe an audiobook, maybe whatever. But being each other's cheerleader, not when it's easy, but when you're feeling like your career is going nowhere and they're getting all these accolades, still being that cheerleader and finding that, I think, is very important when performers or artistic and creative people of any stripe are together as a couple.
Well, that's teamwork. If you guys are working together, you're together. And I think that's a key thing because, Matt, you just mentioned something that you got to be a cheerleader when things are not going good for you, but they're going good for her and vice versa. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow. And I remember going back from the first day we met, you don't understand that when I was talking to him, he mentioned you, and it was like he lit up like it was the 4th of July and Christmas and everything put together. And I said, really? He's like, yeah, and just that passion that came out. And I'm not surprised you guys are like this, because if he's like this, that means you're like this. And the bottom line is together, you guys make a unit that works.
Absolutely.
And that support factor is important. It's very important.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
I think you hear all this stuff in Hollywood with actors. They get married and they do this, and all of a sudden this one makes a movie, is cheating on this one and doing this and doing that. I mean,
it's a little different because we are working actors. We're not stars.
That's true. We're not celebrities where you got to.
So I can't sit here and say that would never happen to us if all of a sudden we became, Angelina Jolie and what's the Brad Pitt.
Well, let's say it's never going to happen, because we can't have that happen. You guys got to stay the way you are. Even if you get super duper uber famous and all that stuff happens, how you are is the real. Okay.
I mean, we've never been famous, but I think there's a whole other level, I think, of self-knowledge you have to have when suddenly you have people, for lack of a better word, throwing themselves at you. But I will say, we've both had scenes where we've had to watch each other make out with somebody or have a scene with somebody. And what has always stuck in my head is one of the funniest and most surreal moments I'd ever had. I was doing a play called Chinglish here in Los Angeles.
What?
And my co-star was an actress named Kara Wong, who's actually in the new Top Gun movie that's coming out.
Okay.
Delightful, brilliant actress. And we had a scene where we're both in our underwear making out on a bed. And it is a comedy, so jokes are happening as it's happening. Both my wife and my mother are in the audience. And I know both of their laughs very well. So I can distinctly remember kissing Kara and then working my way down her body as we're both in our underwear on a bed and hearing both my wife and my mother laughing louder than everybody else. The joke that was just made, they thought was hilarious in the context of knowing me, and just having that surreal moment of like, yep, this is my career.
where your wife's laughing at you while you're in bed. Okay, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's something you do. I saw her in a play where she was making out with a guy, and I was there with my cousin. My cousin's like, how can you watch that? And I was like, it's part of the business.
Yeah.
She's got to watch me. I got to watch her.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
But there's the maturity factor, understanding this too, because not a lot of people can suck that up and handle that.
Well, I mean, yes, you have to have a mutual trust, and that's what I love about us and our personalities is that we're not the stereotypical, completely like creative brained type people.
True.
We're also very logical.
We're both children of engineers.
Yeah, I mean,
people, so.
So when we deal with marital issues, we come at it in a very logical sense where we sit down and we have a conversation, we go to therapy because we really believe that is the key to every happy marriage.
In couples therapy. And
whether you have issues or not, you know. So we come at it
absolutely.
In that way. We're not always, we're not driven by emotions and dreams. We are driven by passion, absolutely. But we're also very logical type A people. So we and not only that, we shift our perspective of, two separate careers into this is a almost like a two-partner business. So if one person succeeds, then the other also does. So we try to be like, okay, what can I do to help you, get up to the next level? So if that means, if Matt's like, how do I help you become a great director? Yeah. All right, I'm going to write something that's going to really highlight my talent, and I'm going to put him in it because I am going to help him get the footage that he needs to step him up. So we look at it as a team effort, like a business, like a corporation of two people trying to build this.
Just imagine if more married couples had that mentality that you support the person you're with to help elevate them where they need to be or where they want to be, and then you do the same for the other. I think if more couples were like that, there'd be less divorce probably. But not everyone's like that. You guys are fortunate.
The magical thing.
Go to therapy. Sometimes it helps to have a third person be like, and you're like,
too funny. But that's great. That's great advice. You guys out there, go to therapy if you need to and make your marriage work because it's worth it. And you can see right here, it's worth it. All right. So now in closing, why don't you guys let everyone know how they can follow your career, follow, what you're doing, your websites, whatever you need to let them know. Is there anything that we're missing out from covering today? Because I know I had I brought up all the that you're working on.
The only thing is I have something coming up on the 6th. Is that
5th of February?
5th of February, which is in 3 days. Which I didn't even realize. I should have posted it, but I flew to Hawaii recently to shoot Magnum PI, and that's coming out on the 5th at 9 p.m. And so I'm going to post stuff on it about that. But Hawaii, it was amazing, and I got to reconnect with my hula roots and all of that. But
that was a fun trip.
But yeah, as far as that's it for me. And then Mosquito State coming out.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For me, I'm MatthewJaeger.com is my website. But really the best way would be Instagram. I'm just Matthew Jaeger Actor on Instagram. And because I've got a recurring coming up on a yet to be unnamed show. But believe me, as soon as I'm allowed to say it, I'll be saying it.
It's pretty big. It's pretty awesome.
You'll
be saying it. I'll be saying it. We'll let people know.
And the next book in the Thomas Wildest series will probably be released. If it stays in the same schedule, I haven't talked with JM in a while, but I'm guessing it'll be around June, July. The next audiobook will be happening. So I'll be announcing that as well. So yeah, the best way is Matthew Jaeger Actor on Instagram. And hey, if you want to learn Kung Fu, go to 5 Families Kung Fu Sans Su.
And, there you go.
We're on Zoom, so we have people who are you can do it for anyone.
Well, you know the thing is, when they come on Vero, then we can talk because then we get some action.
Exactly,
we get some action. Just so you know.
The same thing, just CarolinaSpiro.com. All of my handles on everything, Twitter, Instagram, everything is Carolina Espiro. So just my name, and then you'll be able to see and follow all of that there.
All right.
But if you forget, just Google us and you'll run into our stuff.
Yeah, that's it. Look, and guys, I appreciate you coming on the show. For those watching and listening, you're talking about a couple that I see being a future power couple. They support each other. Learn from them, and be a part of what's going to be happening in their lives, because what they're bringing to the table is a little more than you know. All right, but I thank you guys for tuning in. You guys stick with me, and we'll
you're keeping us in your circle, man. I mean, you're always willing to deal and coming up with new stuff, and I love that you keep bringing us in every time you've got a new thing. So
hey, we got to do this up because we got to support each other, and this is what we do. And highlighting, see, I love highlighting people. As anyone that watches the show, they know I've been doing it for a long time. I'll continue to do it because the talents that I see out there, they don't get the play that they should, and you guys should get more play than you do. So this is what we're doing here. This is what we're doing here. All right, you guys, thank you. Stay with me. And for those that are watching and listening, we'll be back with you with the next episode of the UCW Radio Show.
Initiating shutdown sequence.
You're listening to UCW Radio in your face.
What is your major malfunction? So let it be written. So let it be done.
Ladies and gentlemen, my mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you.